Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Timothy Lee, and I'm a research analyst at Red Cloud Securities. I'm delighted to host a Red Cloud webinar on gold exploration and development today. We will hear from John Proust, Chairman and CEO of Japan Gold Corporation. During today's webinar, he will provide an overview and outlook, and then we will take questions. You can type your questions into the chat box at any time, and we will get to as many as we can. Before we kick things off, first we need to discuss some fine print. During this Japan Gold webinar, forward-looking statements may be made. I would direct listeners to the company's forward-looking statements disclosure outlined in the corporate presentation, and that can be found on the company's website, japangold.com. For Red Cloud Securities, Inc., I would highlight that this webinar is for information purposes only. It should not be considered a solicitation or a recommendation to buy or sell securities. We note that this call does not consider the particular situation or needs of individual investors. Participants should rely on their own investigation and seek their own professional advice before investing. Please see our most recent research located on the Red Cloud website for specific disclosures on Japan Gold. So we have Japan Gold presenting today. The company was a first mover as a foreign exploration company focused on Japan. The company has a sizable portfolio of projects, including 100% owned projects and an exploration partnership with a major gold producer. With that, I now turn it over to John to update our audience on the company.
Well, thank you, Tim. Thanks for that introduction, and I'm pleased to speak to everybody today. Thanks for joining. It is a busy time here. Roundup is in full swing here in Vancouver, and there's plenty of meetings and interest in what's happening in Japan. The presentation is now being shared with you, and I'm going to take you through just a handful of slides. And before I move into this, I just want to mention that in past presentations, I generally spent a lot of time talking about why we're in Japan and how we got there, and then go over our extensive portfolio of 35 projects, which cover over 3,000 square kilometers of the best mineral rights in the 5 gold districts of Japan. Today's presentation is really trying to distill that down to the top priorities, to really focus our attention on projects that have received significant work in 2023 and that are moving into very solid work programs in 2024. The other point that I'd love to make is that we have at Japan Gold have an outstanding team in Japan. Our team has done an extraordinary amount of work across 10 projects in 2023 in very difficult terrain and challenging circumstances. But we've really been able to advance projects in both our Barrick Alliance and in the Japan Gold portfolio. So I'm hopeful to describe that to you today. As Tim mentioned, there is a set of forward-looking statements that may be made here, and here's our summary slide on that. So to start off with, you'll see a nicely simplified map of Japan, and on the sketch, you'll see 4 projects that are highlighted: Mobe, Togi, Ibetsu, and Hakuryu. And these are the 4 projects that have received significant work by the Barrick Alliance in 2023. Starting in the south, in the Mobe Project, this is the feature project of Barrick and the Barrick Alliance. The Mobe Project is a project that is in a very large area of alteration that we've identified early on in the evaluation process with Barrick. And it was then advanced by Barrick to the second phase of evaluation, which really indicates these projects have the potential to host a Tier 1 or Tier 2 ore body, being 5 million ounces or greater of gold in a Tier 1 ore body, or 3 million ounces or greater in a Tier 2 ore body. At the Mobe Project, we initially drilled, after doing significant preliminary work, we drilled a framework set of drill holes of 3 drill holes. And those 3 drill holes were very widely spaced. They were spaced, a kilometer or more apart, in order to demonstrate the prospectivity of a large area and potentially demonstrate that there was an ore body that might be of Barrick size. We were very fortunate that the 3 initial drill holes all hit mineralization. And uniquely enough, in one of the drill holes, where our focus on all of our projects is low sulfidation epithermal gold veins, so quartz veins that host gold and silver and alluvium. We took initially the samples from the vein samples from the drill core and sent it to assay, and found that there was gold in those quartz veins. But also we use a tool called a PXRF machine, which is basically like a gun where the muzzle of the gun, when it touches a spot along the drill core that we've extracted, gives us a sense of what elements are right at that spot. And it doesn't really identify gold very effectively, but it does show things like arsenic, which are a very good indication of gold being in the system. And when we did that, we found that along the drill core, in the host rock, the breccia host rock, there were elevated levels of arsenic. So we sent significant amounts of the drill core, in addition to the vein material, to the lab. And the assays that came back really surprised us, because we did find gold, as I say, over small intervals with the vein material initially in centimeters to meters. But we ended up with an interval of 144 meters of just less than a gram, 0.7 of a gram. And that was over 144 meters, which really showed us that there was significant gold in the system, but that it might have been a slightly different system, or a different style of system or model than what we initially had conceived. So based on that result, we then accelerated a second drill program where we permitted 9 drill pads and 9 holes. And we were fortunate to complete 4 of those drill holes prior to the end of the year. That drill core is now off in the lab and is being assayed now, and we expect to report to the market in February prior to the PDAC, which is in early March. So we're really looking forward to that. Again, we used our PXRF machine as we were doing this, and we were seeing really good indications of further mineralization. We're very high in the system, and so again, this bodes well for future drill programs where we may go deeper in the system. Our holes were drilled up to 450 meters, but they're angled holes, so the true vertical depth is really more in the 200 to 250 meter range. So this is a Barrick Priority 1 target. So moving on from Mobe, we move up to the Togi project on the Noto Peninsula. And unfortunately, first of all, the Togi project is a Barrick Priority 1 target. It's a gold field that is approximately 8 kilometers long, that has a mine at either end, and where our sampling demonstrated continuous high-grade gold samples across this area. And so we followed that up with a series of programs where we mapped the area. We did CSAMT, so we did geophysics, and then analyzed that as well. And so we want to complete ground geophysics in terms of ground magnetics in 2024 and get ready to drill. Unfortunately, on the 1st of January, Japan time of this year, there was a significant seismic event. There was an earthquake that occurred at the tip of the Noto Peninsula, and it was a 7.6 on the Richter scale. And it created significant destruction and some loss of life in the region. None of our team was affected. And none of our operations were affected in any way. But we are very much supporting, any efforts there, and we're very conscious of the activity that's happened there and the rebuilding that will have to take place. We're still optimistic that we'll be able to, in the second half of this year, move forward with our programs there, and we're continuing to monitor the situation very, very effectively. So that's the Togi project. Now moving up to Hokkaido, the island of Hokkaido, our Abetsu project really has been a focus of the company in 2023. The Abetsu project is on an elevated, almost like a plateau. It's elevated on a plateau. It's an area that is between 700 meters and 1,000 meters in elevation, so up a little bit higher. And there's fairly dense undergrowth, and there's very steep climbs to get up into this particular area. Our team, we had over 20 people in that area, and did a remarkable job of completing a major geophysical survey over an area that's 5 kilometers by 4 kilometers, so 4 by 5 kilometers. We completed the CSAMT, or the Controlled Source Audio Magnetotellurics survey over 25 line kilometers. We took a significant number of samples where the results are pending now. And out of all this, we identified that the northeast area, or half of the prospect, looked very appropriate as a priority target zone. So we're currently considering our drill options there, and we look forward to advancing that in 2024. And finally, the Rio Project is another project that we continue to be enthusiastic about. It sits just south of the third largest past producing mine in Japan, the Kanamai mine. And it's an area that we've now done all the mappings. We've done detailed mapping and geophysics. And we're going to be doing more work in that fashion with ground magnetics in 2024 and moving towards drill targeting. So we're enthusiastic about the Rio project as well. So we work very closely with Barrick. We communicate with Barrick once a week. We have a technical meeting every Wednesday, so a few hours from now. And we continue to have strong leadership from Barrick and some new leadership that's really got a good understanding of the style of mineralization that we've got, and are very much champions of us moving forward and hopefully drilling 3 or 4 projects this year. So that's where we are with the Barrick Alliance. Now, moving on from the Barrick Alliance, we'll move to the Japan Gold projects. And so, again, we've highlighted on this map the Japan Gold projects that are the 5 projects that have received the most attention for us this year. And starting in the south, in the Audah Takamine project, the Audah Takamine project is a project that has had significant work, mapping, geology, geophysics, geochemistry, and scout drilling. And we drilled an additional drill hole this year to confirm further geology. And this is all being with the guidance and input from Newmont. That project, we have now done a further evaluation with one of our key advisors, Dr. Steve Garwin, who some of you may know as the past chief geologist for Newmont in Nevada for 10 years, or the chief technical advisor to SolGold. But in any event, he's been able to look at all the information that we've prepared on this project and really reinterpreted that in terms of this trend that has 5 historic mines that run along approximately 7 kilometers, and to really assist us in drill targeting that's going to advance this project and evaluate the whole area. So we're looking forward to advancing that in 2024. We then move up to Middle Kyushu, which is the Bajo project. The Bajo project is one of my personal favorites. And the reason that I really like the Bajo project is that it's the site of the historic Bajo mine, which produced just over 400,000 ounces of gold, but primarily 300,000+ of those ounces were from one very large vein. But the grade was incredible. The average grade of that vein was over 125 grams per ton. And it's in a very unique setting where the overlying geology intersects a granite formation. And so we've now done extensive work across the Bajo project to try and identify similar looking settings where we might find parallel structures to the veins that were historically mined. We think we're on the right track here. So I think you'll hear more about the Bajo project as we advance it this year. We then move up to Hokkaido, and there's 3 projects there that I want to touch on. The Buho project is a project that's in southwest Hokkaido, and it's a project that has 3 blocks. One of the 3 blocks, Barrick is evaluating and going forward with, and we've renamed that Nakanosawa. And it's something that's just under the radar, but it's being evaluated now. Those blocks sit next door to B Metal's ground, where B Metal is currently drilling. So we are enthusiastic about the drill results that they may be coming up with shortly, and we look forward to new programs there. At the Buho project, the 2 blocks that we control that are outside the Barrick Alliance, there was a historic drill hole of very high grade and a very significant intersection. And so we've gone in now to do regional work there to do ridge and spur soil sampling and to take soil grids around that particular area and to try and identify the orientation of the veins that had been identified and to determine where we might want to place our drill holes at Buho. So we're looking at advancing that as well. Going further on up to the Sanru project. The Sanru project is in the Kitami metallogenic province, one of the top metallogenic and gold-producing provinces of Japan. And it sits adjacent to the Irving Resources Omu project. And so we've advanced the Sanru project significantly again through this past period with various work programs that have assisted us in not only looking at the historic Sanru mine, which was one of the larger past producing mines in the region, but also how that might expand and could interplay with the Omu project of Irving Resources. So that's an area that we're really focused on as well. The feature project for us on Hokkaido is our Audah project, and we've touched on that in many past presentations, and I really want to demonstrate to you how well that project is advancing. So I'm going to move into that project area and a map to show you that. Just one moment. Here we are. I'm going to just jump past this, just to go right to a map. Okay, I'm not. There we go. So the Audah project. Here's a map of the project, and so just to give you an outline, my cursor is following the outline of the Audah project, and then adjacent to that is the Kanahana project, which sort of looks like an anchor. And across these 2 projects, you'll see many historic mine markings, red crosses that are the historic mine markings. There's approximately 30 historic mines here. We've done extensive work across the Audah project, mapping, geology, geophysics, geochemistry, and scout drilling. And we are really focused in on 3 prospects here that we're advancing. The first prospect is the Rio Prospect, which is up in the northwest. And in the green box, you'll see an area where we've drilled 20 drill holes along approximately 1 kilometer of the historic workings. And we've had very good success. Our drill holes have intersected 6 grams of over 20 meters, ultra high grade of over 1,300 grams per ton, over half a meter. So significant drill intersections there. And then what we've also done is in the blue box, we have done a significant soil sampling program, which has demonstrated that there could be a much broader area of mineralization and potential hidden parallel structures. So we've done that. We've also worked again with Steve Garwin to look at this whole model and to identify how we're going to follow up on all this work in 2024 with new drill targets and advancement. From there, we go down to the central area to the Showa Audah prospects. And in this area, we've completed a significant geophysical survey, a CSAMT survey over an area of very high-grade soil anomalies and extensive resistivity features. And we have had very strong results. So we're now moving ahead to refine our drill targets in this particular area. And then finally, down in the south, we have the Soroma Jan Corridor, which is an area that's outlined in blue that goes from the northeast to the southwest and runs approximately 8 kilometers. In this particular area, we have evaluated initially the first 3 mines, the Soroma, Chitose, and Taiho mine, over about 3 kilometers, and found that this corridor looks very prospective. We drilled 6 drill holes under the Soroma mine and not only came up with good gold results, but very high-grade silver results there as well. And so our work in 2023 has been to extend this trend past the Taiho mine, another 5 kilometers down to the Joman workings. And we've had really strong results that I'm going to show you in a moment. So we'll just discuss the Rio mine first, or the Rio Prospect first. And we'll just move to the next slide here. And here we are. So in that green box at the Rio Prospect, this area that's in a dotted rectangle highlights that area that we were focusing in on. It's a very busy slide, but what you see here is in pink, that's the geology that we focused on in the area, and that was the area of historic mining. And we think that this pink mineralization extends under the younger volcanic cover, which is in the sort of the mustard color and the light pink areas. The areas, or the dots that you see here, are soil sampling, and as the colors get warmer, those are showing higher grades of gold across that area. So we're seeing very strong soil sampling results. The star that's at the top end of that rectangle is one of 5 underground workings, and it's one that we've showcased before, but I want to just highlight a couple of elements there. So if we move, that star is blown up to the sketch that's on the right here, which is the Jinja vein. And in previous presentations, I've discussed that this is a cross section of 6 different levels that were being mined right up till 1943, when the government closed this mine and took the workers to work in base metal mines and steel factories to support the Second World War. And the mine ultimately has had no work since that time. We've done extensive work to drill under the old workings. And just to recap, they were mining a vein that was 0.5 meter wide, and it was averaging over 40 grams per ton. And we found that vein was expanding, it was getting wider, and the grades were getting higher as it was getting deeper. And so we went from 0.5 meter wide vein to 5 meters wide to further 20 meters wide as we get about 100 meters below the workings. And so what we've now sketched in pink, this is our evaluation, is that this is a chute. And this is sort of the shape of the chute that's open at depth. You can see the arrow showing that it's open at depth. So this shows the potential for high-grade mineralization to continue at depth, and for this prospect to really be a significant prospect. And now, if I move back to the sketch on the left, the expanded soil sampling, which are the dots that sort of go outside the central rectangle, have highlighted 3 oval areas of potential additional mineralization that was blind or that wasn't identified previously. So again, this shows us a lot of prospectivity for the area, and really the scale of this turning into a camp. So that's very positive. From here, I'm going to go down to, I'll just go back to the previous slide, if I could. And I'm going to take you down now to the Soroma Jan Corridor and just blow that up for you. So we'll skip ahead 2 slides. And there we go. Thank you. Okay, and there we are. We're ahead 2 slides. And the sketch that's on the right basically is a blow up of the Soroma Jan Corridor. And it highlights the rock and soil sampling that we've done in this area. Now, again, the area that we focused on initially was starting up in the northeast, Soroma, Chitosi, and Taiho mines. And that's approximately 3.5 kilometers there. And again, we drilled under the Soroma mine with good results. And then the dots that you see here are the soil sampling that we've done that really have highlighted this area. And so we felt that this area would extend further to the southwest. So we did almost 800 soil samples and 300 rock samples going to the southwest. And 2 areas really lit up. You can see an area where my cursor is now that has given us very high-grade soil samples. And then further down near the Joman mine itself and south of the Joman mine, we had very significant samples. Those red arrows relate to the photos that I put on this slide to the left. And so you can see the one ending in 741. That sample is in the top left-hand corner. You can see it's 54741, and it ran 54 grams per ton gold. And then you can see just the other samples, 20.6 grams, 19.8 grams, 3.9 grams. And the textures and the characteristics of these rocks are ideal for future prospects and future mines. This is exactly the target that we're looking for. So this 8-kilometer trend now is something that is really attractive to larger companies, where they find that this kind of scale and potential can really host, large ore bodies and significant accumulations of gold and silver. Now I'm going to skip back several slides to the Barrick Alliance slide. I want to go right back to the Barrick slide if I could, which is right back at the very beginning. And there we are, right there. One point of interest that may be of interest to you is that I highlighted at the start of this discussion the Mobe Project, which is our feature project in Japan, and where we're having very strong drill results. And then also the Togi project, the abandoned gold field, where we now have not only the core area of 8 kilometers by 4 kilometers, but we now have 145 square kilometers of the same geology that Barrick encouraged us to select and pick up some time ago. So we have that area secured. More recently, Irving Resources with their partner Newmont came into the area and picked up other significant areas of the Noto Peninsula. And just yesterday, there was an announcement that Newmont is now entering into a joint venture with Irving Resources on 2 particular areas. One is the Yamagano mine area, the historic Yamagano mine area, which sits just north of our Mobe project. And the second area is the Noto Peninsula and the area just north of our Togi project. So it's very encouraging for us that not only have Japan Gold with our partner Barrick identified these areas as top priorities in Japan, but now that's been further reinforced by Newmont in their relationship with Irving, that they're moving into joint ventures in these areas. So we welcome Irving and Newmont to these areas, and we certainly look for great success for all of us in those areas. So I'll now move towards the end of my presentation, and if we could go right to a slide that's at the very second to last slide, please. Thank you. One more slide, and one, actually, could we go to the slide just previous to that, please? So in this presentation, we have next steps on all of our projects. So we not only do this work, but we have next steps for 2024. And whether it's at Buho, where we're doing our detailed model for Buho, and we're preparing to do some drilling to confirm historic drilling, and then identify the characteristics of the veins there and the scale. Whether it's moving down to the Badjo project, where 400,000 ounces at an average grade of 125 grams per ton have been mined, where we're going to move into that area and look at a parallel or a lookalike setting there. Where we're going to move down to the Ora Takamine project, and based on a new interpretation with Steve Garwin's input, look at our drill targets and further drill programs there. Or whether we're going to continue to advance our Sanru project as the neighbor project to Irving's Omu project up in northern Hokkaido. So in all these areas, what we're constantly doing is we're rating and ranking all of our targets, and we're quickly prioritizing as many to drilling as possible. We're encouraged that Barrick has already signaled that they'd like to drill at least 3 projects or more this year. So we look for a very robust Barrick set of work programs this year and results. We anticipate that we're going to have results from drilling at the Mobe project in February, and other work program announcements as we move forward. And so if we just move to our concluding slide, I like to always refer back to the advantages that Japan Gold brings. And again, when you're looking at other mineral exploration companies and other jurisdictions in the world, you have to really consider the elements that we've listed below, that we are the first mover in a very safe geopolitical jurisdiction that's been vastly underexplored. There's no mineralization. There's been a rich history of high-grade gold mining, and a proven track record of advancing, mineral deposits to production by our team. We've got a very strong and comprehensive team that have done extraordinary work in these areas over the last year, again, as I've demonstrated across 10 different projects in various settings, and our team has really been able to produce significant results that have not only encouraged the Barrick Alliance to advance forward to 3 or more drill programs in 2024, but advance our own projects alone. So we're looking forward to great results this year. The drill core that's highlighted at the top of this this slide is from that Soroma Jan Corridor. This is some of the most beautiful drill core that I've seen. If you're attending the PDAC mining conference, you may see this on display there as well. You can see, very high grade silver highlighted in this drill core, but also there's significant gold in this drill core as well. And so this is our goal. This is what we hope to find in Japan, and we are finding it with the drill bit now. So we appreciate your support and encouragement as we move forward. So with that, I'll pause the presentation and I'll turn it back over to Tim for any questions. While we're waiting for Tim, I know that Tim is also attending the roundup, the mineral exploration roundup here in Vancouver today. So I imagine that he's connecting remotely and will be with us shortly. All right, we see he's just stepped off the screen here, so I think he'll be reconnecting. I'm anticipating that he didn't have a good connection there. Okay, Tim's coming back in with us now. Hi, Tim.
Hello.
I mentioned to the audience, Tim, that you're remote today, so your connection may not be as efficient as it generally is.
Yes, I think that's the case. Did get cut out there. I apologize. We do have a few questions here to start off, John. First, always popular, but how much cash do you have on hand, and do you foresee having to raise more funds anytime soon?
Sure. So as of September 30th, which was our last published financial statements, we had $3.4 million of cash. We currently have capital that will carry us through the second quarter. And we have a series of initiatives, which include other potential partners and other liquidity events to consider our capital needs going forward.
Great. And we do have a question following up on that, looking at what is the 2024 budget and perhaps a split on the Barrick projects and your wholly owned projects.
Sure, that's great. So just to recap, in 2023, Barrick spent approximately $4 million on their programs. We spent approximately $5 million on our programs. So we spent $9 million in 2023. In 2024, Barrick, their minimum commitment is always $3.5 to $4 million. And Barrick is fortunate that as a large integrated gold producer, they have a large international budget that they could draw on. And it's really based on success of projects globally. And so we have a very strong Barrick team which supports what we're doing. And again, with the drill programs that we've got going forward, we're very much looking forward to going back to that large pool of global exploration capital and drawing down further funds as we advance our projects with Barrick. As far as Japan Gold's programs go, we're currently working through that right now to determine the level of activity that we want to do, or potentially the level of activity that others may want to do should we be successful in other joint ventures.
Great. And looking around at, obviously Japan is a fairly populated place. Can you tell us a little about infrastructure access at your projects, including access to the electrical grid?
Sure. Japan is an incredible country. Most people envision Japan as Tokyo, a dense urban setting, very, very little vegetation, etc. But the areas that we're active in, up in Hokkaido and in Kyushu, are completely the opposite. There's very little population. They're very rural, it's extraordinary settings to work in. But what's unique about Japan is Japan has put in incredible infrastructure into both Hokkaido and in Kyushu, whether it's being highways, tunnels, electrical grids. It just goes on and on. And so the level and access to infrastructure is extraordinary. And so, even our ability to commute from Vancouver to Tokyo to our base in Hokkaido is incredibly efficient. From Tokyo, we fly an hour and a half north to the Memambetsu airport, and we drive down a lovely paved highway with a wonderful tunnel system to our base in about an hour and 15 minutes. I mean, it's really, there's no dugout canoes. We're not, we're not in that level of jungle. So we can effectively access all of our projects very efficiently. A lot of our projects in Hokkaido are on forestry land, and so there's a well-kept infrastructure of forestry roads that allow us to get to our projects very efficiently as well.
Great. And obviously, you do have the agreement with Barrick in place, but obviously with your other projects, would you look for additional JVs with other companies?
Absolutely. A number of other companies have identified Japan as a top exploration destination for the reasons that I highlighted a few moments ago in terms of its geopolitical safety, but really more its geological setting, its underexplored nature, and its history of high-grade gold mining. So that's not lost on the global mining community, and accordingly, we're seeking additional joint venture partners that have the ability, the scale, and the understanding of the style of mineralization that we're targeting to be able to come in and be partners and to fund our projects going forward. So we're very much looking forward to putting new joint ventures in place as our portfolio evolves.
Okay, great. And along a similar lines, would you have any consideration of spinning out projects or selling projects within your portfolio? And if so, where would you put more of the resources?
Mm-hmm. We're really fortunate that we have an abundance of riches. By being the first mover into Japan, we now have this vast portfolio that I mentioned at the beginning. I didn't want to talk about because it's so large, but we have 35 projects. But the holding cost, the carrying cost for those projects in 2023 was approximately $60,000 US. So we have this wonderful portfolio, and it gives us great optionality. So it gives us the ability to advance some with Barrick based on that incredible screening process that they've done. It gives us the ability to advance projects ourselves that we're really focused on. It gives us the ability to bring in new joint venture partners, and it also gives us the ability to sell projects as well to other parties and keep royalties. So we can go. So we've gone from a project generator, to a project developer, but we may also have a royalty division at the end of the day. So we really cover all the bases, and we welcome participants in all those different areas.
Great. And looking around, obviously there's not a lot of current mining in Japan, but there is some. Are there existing mills that you could take advantage of anywhere near the areas of concern?
Sure. So in Japan, one of the unique items about Japan, first of all, is that there's only one operating gold mine in the whole country today. It's in southern Kyushu. It's the Hishikari gold mine that's owned by Sumitomo Metal Mining. And many people now, many more people certainly than when we started in Japan, are aware of the Hishikari gold mine being one of the highest grade tier 1 gold mines in the world. So to give you a sense of that, the Hishikari gold mine is a 13 million ounce ore body, of which over 8.5 million ounces of gold have now been produced between 30 and 40 grams per ton. And this is a low sulfidation epithermal gold system. So it's quartz veins that are very similar to the targets that we're looking for in either the closed mines that are under our project areas or new targets that we're identifying. Now, at the Hishikari mine, they basically extract the vein material and bring it up a ramp from a relatively shallow distance of 200 to 300 meters. And they don't process the ore. They take the whole ore and they ship it to the Sumitomo smelter. Now, in Japan, post the Second World War, there were a number of copper smelters. There's 5 major copper smelters and several other smelters existing in Japan. And they're owned by the big companies that we've all heard of: Sumitomo, Mitsubishi, Mitsui, JX Nippon. And these companies, these copper smelters, require an ingredient called flux. And flux is really just silica or quartz. So the opportunity exists in Japan if you're successful in finding a vein material, that you can ship that vein material to the smelters, and the smelters value that. So they'll buy that material from you, and they will give you the gold or the majority of the gold back. And so we've had dialogue with many of the smelter owners where they've offered just that. If we bring vein material out of mines, they'll take our ore, they'll buy our ore, and they'll give us 90 to 95% of the gold back. This does 2 things for us. One is it takes away our waste. And 2, it gives us an incredibly low cost, all-in sustaining costs, where Hishikari has one of the lowest all-in sustaining costs in the world. And we would be able to piggyback on that by doing that, having that same arrangement and not having the capex to build a production facility and the larger footprints that are associated with that. So the bulk of those smelters are located in southern Japan, but we've already seen studies and had discussions with smelter owners that it really doesn't matter where you are in Japan. If you have silica-rich ore that has some grade in it, that you'll be able to ship it to those smelters. The key caveat here to understand, though, is that you have to ship at least 85% silica to those smelters. So it can't be tiny little veins that have a lot of the wall rock that's going to work for those smelters. It's got to be higher concentrations of quartz or silica that's going to work. In addition to that, there's another facility. So about 85 to 90% of Hishikari's ore is the white quartz vein material, but some of it is the vein material and the wall rock or the host. And that material is sent to a very large cyanide treatment plant that's been operating since the 1950s and is vastly underutilized in Japan. And so that's where they ship that material to. So that facility is open for business. And so there's another option that exists as well.
Okay, great. And obviously, you and I are have both been attending conferences. With gold holding up over $2,000 per ounce, have you seen a shift or an increase in investor sentiment in the space?
We're seeing that slowly. I mean, certainly at the conference, I've got to say, the whole precious metals sphere is really coming back into vogue now. And so the level of enthusiasm, not only from presenters like myself, who must be enthusiastic, but investors just attending these conferences and asking really good questions, that pace has really picked up. And I think it really bodes well for this year, for people coming back into this space. They've seen the sustained price of gold, the price of gold sustain $2,000 or above for some time now. So it's not a kind of a flash in the pan, a blip, and then a movement downward. And again, there certainly are a plethora of unfortunate geopolitical risks that are continuing to drive gold, as well as elements to do with the U.S. and their cycles and what's happening in China as well. So there's a whole series of factors that are continuing to maintain it there. So gold is going to be a priority, and I think we're going to see prices move to re-rating levels shortly. What Japan Gold needs to do, because our share price is almost half or below half where our last financing was done. Our last financing was done in May of June of last year at 20 cents a share. We raised $6 million, predominantly through big institutions. And today we're trading at 8 cents a share, which is an incredibly low valuation, which brings us to about a $20-odd million valuation after we've spent $85 million getting the restart of the Japan gold mining industry and bringing in Barrick and Newmont and an enormous portfolio of prospects in Japan. So we really see a re-rating in the future here, and we think that's going to be further bolstered by drill results. And so that's why we're very encouraged that Barrick wants to drill 3 projects this year, and that we've got drill results coming in the next couple of months.
Great. Great. Well, I think that's all the questions we have. Maybe to reiterate a little bit, you had finished with the slide that had this, and you just mentioned some of the catalysts. But just to review, what are some key catalysts and news items we might expect from Japan Gold over the coming weeks and months?
Absolutely. When we break our business down into a couple of different baskets, obviously with Barrick, we've got a committed partner that's organized to fund, of course, for 2024. We've got 4 prospects or projects that we've highlighted for you today, 4 out of 6 that have received significant work, and the work is really bearing fruit. One project that's going to be drilled should be 3 or potentially 4 projects that are going to be drilled this year. So the pace is really picking up, which means results and news to the market, which should be positive. With our own projects, we've really focused in on the projects that we feel hold the highest potential. And so we've got ambitious projects for those this year. We've also got the potential to bring in new partners and really use their expertise and their dollars to advance those projects as well. So it looks to be a very, very positive year for Japan Gold, a series of catalysts that we would expect going forward. And I look forward to reporting to our shareholders over the next couple of quarters and just seeing how we're actually making out.
Great. Well, I'd like to thank John Proust for presenting today and for filling in for me when I was cut out for a moment there. And thank you, everyone on the line, for tuning in. Have a great rest of your day and a great 2024.